Your talk station, 1230 The Buzz.
Let's get it started. Let's get it started in here. Let's get it started.
Welcome back to Talk of the Town with PG Sittenfeld. So glad you were spending some of your beautiful Saturday with us. And get the little portable radio, go sit on the porch, enjoy the nice day. If you have the Reds game on, obviously mute the Reds game and put on 1230 The Buzz.
With cold beer.
So you can be part of the conversation. And if you are a beer enthusiast, you know one thing I have to ask, I know Tamaya is going to ask a question, then we'll get back to the phone lines in a second here. I vaguely know what's in beer. There's hops, there's water, but can one of you walk me and all of our listeners through what exactly is in beer and what is some, like, I kind of know what hops are, but not really. What's in beer?
Well, there's 4 main ingredients in beer. Water.
Happiness, joy.
Well, close. But actually, it's water, malt, hops, and yeast.
Okay, what are, it's like we kind of know what each of those are, but what are those things?
Well, malt is actually a grain. It's barley, and then they dry it, and then they grind it down, and then they mash it into the beer, and it creates what's known as fermentables in the beer. And then obviously the hops are kind of like the spice to the beer. Is that people sort of refer to that? I mean, is that really like the secret magic, not the secret ingredient, but the magic ingredient? Well, it's the combination of the 4 and how you use them that actually are kind of the magic ingredients to beer. And then the yeast, obviously, it creates the fermentables on there. So it's actually it's a combination of all 4 of them. But there are beers out there that do use adjuncts in their beer, and adjuncts are known as fillers to beer. Kind of like you hear some of the fast food chains put fillers in their beef and all that type of stuff. Well, there's fillers in beers, and fillers in beers are things like rice and sugar and those type of ingredients in beer. They're a little less expensive. Corn in that.
I don't need corn in my beer. Yeah. How much does the water make a huge difference?
The water does make a huge difference in the beer. You have to have a really.
Is the Ohio River doing us okay here in these parts?
Well, actually, we do have all of our beer go through a huge filtration system,
right?
And to take out any of the impurities in the beer, and then we have it always at the same pH. So when we brew the beer, water does make a difference.
All right. Well, now you know. Omar, we'll go to you next, but T, you first.
I'm just curious as to how did you get so involved in the brewing industry in the first place?
Steve, do you want to start?
Well, more from the history standpoint, I've lived in over the Rhine for about a decade and a half, and in getting involved in the history down there, it's one of the great assets of the city, and we approach it more from a neighborhood development standpoint in over the Rhine, but we quickly realized the brewing heritage, which was such an asset that we had here in the city, and it's a way to bring more people to the neighborhood. And so getting into that and going through the old buildings and through the old cellars and looking at all that history, it's really fascinating. Of course, being able to drink a beer while you're standing there looking at all that history is really nice, too.
And I just want to remind everyone that they are our resident expert guest in studio with us today, Steve Hampton, the executive director of the Brewery District Redevelopment Corporation, and Greg Hardman, the CEO of the Christian Moerlein Brewing Company. Greg, beer, how did you get into the beer universe?
Well, it started 32 years ago as a freshman at Ohio University in Athens, Ohio. And
we won't ding you for what sounds like underage drinking, because I think most people have probably had a beer before they turned 21.
Actually, you could drink at 18 back then.
Well, I stand corrected.
I wasn't breaking the law, which was interesting. So, but I did start that at Ohio University, and I did get involved in beer there. My first job as a route salesman was on the campus of Ohio University and around Athens and Marietta and Nelsonville and all sorts of places around the Hocking Hills. And then after 4 years of college and 4 years of working for a beer distributor, I kind of branched out and went to go work for a German brewery's U.S. operations called Warsteiner.
Sounds German.
Yeah. The Warsteiner Brauerei of Warstein, Germany. And then I had 18 years with them, and then I decided that I was going to return Cincinnati's grand brewing traditions. And I went out and purchased the Christian Moerlein brand, all because of 2 major reasons. Neither one was that I was crazy, but one, because it was the first American beer to pass the German purity law, which is the first Consumer Protection Act from 1516, known as the
year 1516.
Year 1516.
All right, that's an ancient law.
Yes, known as the Reinheitsgebot. And the second,
Die Reinheitsgebot, Tamaya.
Yes. And then the second reason that I did it actually was because Christian Moerlein was one of the first craft beers brought back out in the craft beer industry in 1981 by the Hudapole Brewing Company.
All right, so you have had a long and storied career in the beer industry.
The only job I've ever had has been in the alcoholic beverage industry.
Well, you do it well, and anybody who has cracked open a Christian Moerlein beer or been down to the spectacular lager house down in the heart of our city knows that you certainly do this well. All right, back to the phone lines we go. Line 3, and Omar, welcome to Talk of the Town.
Hey, I didn't even know Steve was in there. What's up, Steve? What's up?
Hey, Omar, how's it going?
Hey, Omar.
Hey, man,
Hey, Omar, we'll let anyone on this show, clearly. Right?
Hey, all right, PG.
Yes, sir.
But anyway, I was just getting, you must have been thinking what I was thinking, because I was going to say, Greg, you ought to explain how you rescued the beer industry with Christian Moerlein.
Yeah, Greg, go ahead.
Well, actually, Omar, you were there. But what happened is I made a concerted effort to be involved in my community, and being involved in my community meant rescuing Cincinnati's great beer brands.
When you say rescue, Christian Moerlein had been defunct. It wasn't happening.
Yeah, actually, the Hudapole Brewing Company sold out to the Shaneling Brewing Company, and they created Hudapole Shaneling, and then Hudapole Shaneling sold to out-of-town owners. And the plant got bought by the Boston Beer Company, but the brands were sold to people from Cleveland, Ohio, of all places. And then they brewed the beer all over the country. But I decided that I'd had a 4-phase plan. Number 1 was to bring back the local ownership to Cincinnati. Number 2 was to reposition the brands to make them much more relevant to today's consumers. Number 3 was to open local brewing operations in the Over-the-Rhine Brewery District, which we actually brewed our first beer in December of 2010 at that facility on a pilot brewery, which was a very small brewery. And number 3 was to open the world-class Moerlein Lager House.
And it is world-class.
On Cincinnati's riverfront, in order to celebrate Cincinnati's grand brewing traditions. And right now, we're under major expansion up the street. We took over the old Husband potato chip plant, which was the pre-Prohibition Kaufman Brewery, and we do have a brewery, a fairly significant brewery located in that facility that we're really proud of. But what we've also done is we opened the door for other craft brewers in Cincinnati. Cincinnati was lagging behind in that area, and we tried to lead by example and really get people interested in beer, because we feel that if people get interested in craft beer, obviously they're going to be interested in our beer.
And it's working. I mean, I think there is more sort of just beer enthusiasm and craft brewing enthusiasm in Cincinnati than there was, even 3 years ago. Omar, you sound like a beer enthusiast and connoisseur. Am I reading you right?
Oh, for sure. But I like to say one thing.
Yes, sir.
I remember, like you said, I was there. I saw it go on paper, but what's so stunning about me seeing it being on paper, do you know the construction went on, and I did not see any construction. The next thing I knew, the brewery was there. The Christian Moerlein brewery was there.
Magic wand.
It's those little brewers' elves.
Omar, but before...
And then also, Steve, you ought to touch on Mike Morgan's book, man. Mike has a fabulous book out. I've been trying to get him to come to the radio to kind of give them the history of the brew when beer was king, how Prohibition really killed Cincinnati's popularity back in the 40s, because Cincinnati was as fluent as New York City with beer and pork. That was our main commodities here in Cincinnati.
Omar, we'll have Steve talk about that. But before you go here, I do want you to say what your favorite beer and your favorite place to drink it. And don't feel pressured to say a Christian Moerlein in case it's something else. Hey, that can be one of them.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. At the Brewery District meetings, where I get to sample all the beers out there. But anyway, y'all sounded good and good. But make sure, man, you talk about Mike Mike's book.
Yeah, we'll go to that. Thanks a lot for the call, Omar. We will talk to you soon. And Steve, you want to talk about? I mean, Omar knows his beer.
Yeah.
And I think his answer was the same as mine. I like what beer I'm handed. Yeah, exactly. But the book he was talking about.
Yeah, Over the Rhine When Beer Was King. Mike Morgan wrote that. It's a great history of the impact of brewers, and not just the beer itself, but how the beer permeated all aspects of the culture, politically, socially, economically, and again how Prohibition really was a huge impact, as you were talking about before. It wasn't only that you couldn't buy a beer, but it was really an affront to your liberty. I mean, you only had one day off a week, and that Sunday you couldn't just enjoy a beer with your family in a beer garden, and that was all taken away.
Are there any dry counties left in the United States, or dry? I mean, it does seem unfathomable, but are there any?
Actually, Kentucky has plenty of them. They just passed a law in Kentucky that actually, when on voting day, all of the
come across the river,
stores,
folks. Move on into Ohio. You want to.
But they changed that just recently to change that. But there are tons of dry counties and still dry areas, both in Ohio and Kentucky.
And just to make sure that I'm sort of understanding this right, so in a dry county, it is a misdemeanor, a felony, a what if you are caught drinking alcohol?
That would depend on their local laws, but it's probably a misdemeanor, I would imagine.
All right, well, I am gonna do my drinking in Ohio then, just because I frankly don't want to chance it. All right, no, I don't want to sort of make you all cough up statistics that I didn't, sort of tell you I'd be asking for in advance. But what % of the country over the age of 18, of drinking age, I'm sorry, of 21 rather, drinks beer? Do we know roughly?
Actually, we do know those statistics, and if people say that they drank beer on one occasion or more, it's over 50%.
So more than 50% of the drinking population drinks beer. I can't say I'm shocked about that. T, does that sound about what you would have guessed?
Yeah, absolutely.
And the sort of like bread and butter demographic for beer consumption. I mean, is it guys? Is it guys over 50? Is it spread evenly across the sexes?
Well, it's
ladies, if you were a beer enthusiast, call it. We need some female voices representing here.
Well, actually, the females are the largest growth segment of our beer drinkers, but it is typically a male between the ages of 24 and 34 years old, and that's the highest consumption rate right there.
And then I'm guessing maybe you start to have kids, and you're like, I shouldn't be putting away as much beer or something.
It's a bell-shaped curve from there. That's correct.
Why are ladies the highest growth area? What do you attribute that to?
It's basically this audience has been marketing to the male audience for a long time. And females are now discovering great craft beers, and they're discovering that
different flavors of beer.
Different flavors of beer, and they're saying like, hey, this is better than
this
wine.
This stuff's delicious.
This stuff is delicious, exactly. And beer actually has a lot of complexities, even more than wine does.
All right. Coming up out of the next break, Peter, you will be batting leadoff. 749-1230 is the number. Get your beer questions answered. Tell us what your favorite beer is and where your favorite place to drink it is as well.